I was pregnant essentially, but not with a baby, literally with fibroids. Hi, I'm Masani, and I had my 10-pound fibroids removed via a myomectomy, and it was one of the best, most complicated decisions I feel like I could have made for my health. So how I knew I had fibroids. I'm a person who is always at a show or an event that requires me to stand for long periods of time. And when my fibroids were at their absolute biggest, I couldn't stand for longer than 30 minutes. My lower back would start hurting. I sometimes would feel like my period was about to start. Like I would get the feeling of pre-cramps without my period being anywhere near on. I was fatigued. I had to take a nap every single day. 3, I had an appetite for 2. I was eating a whole lot. Sometimes I would eat and it just would feel like I'm not getting full. I was irritable, cranky, and just overall like a little sad. And I think that was in part due to my diet at the time as well. But I believe that the fibroids also added an extra layer of doom and gloom to my psyche and my period. My periods were literally like 10 days long. I could literally go through a whole jumbo pack of pads for one period. It was bad. And my period wasn't like, normal where it's like, okay, the first day is kind of light, the second day is really heavy, the third day lightens up, and, so on and so forth. It was like heavy 10 days straight. I was losing so much blood, which in turn made me feel extra tired, extra sleepy. And I was unproductive. When my period came on, it was like, okay, I'm down for the count. I mean, I'm of use to no one and nobody. So it was almost like I had to be on bed rest when my period came on. How I knew I wanted a myomectomy. Now, I have been doing research on myomectomies, and as someone who had never had surgery before, at first I was frightened. I did not want to go under the knife. I did not want to be unconscious. I did not want to leave my health and my life in the hands of complete strangers, even though they're trained doctors still. I just felt like that would be a situation where I was not in control, and who knows if I would come out on the other side of it. However, my fibroids had gotten so freaking big that it almost left me with no choice. I had gone to multiple doctors who thought I was pregnant. I had to take pregnancy tests. At that point, I was 230 pounds. Mind you, I'm only 5'6". Everything in my life at the moment just felt like a myomectomy would be like the only option I had to feel better and regain my life back. So let's talk about my surgery day. I woke up that day down on my luck thinking that I was going to die. Very pessimistic mindset. But I went to the hospital. They checked me in. They asked me some questions. They basically introduced me to my doctors and, stripped me down. They wheeled me into the operating room. They told me that, they're giving me something that is going to knock me out. You won't remember a thing. And they were right. I got into the operating room and they asked me, what's an album that you would like to listen to before we get started? And I said Victoria Monet's album. Which album was it? I think Jaguar 2. And they put it on, and that's the last thing I remember. I woke up literally 10 pounds lighter. Like, one of my doctors told me that my fibroids, all of my fibroids collectively weighed 10 pounds. So imagine being pregnant with a 10-pound baby. I was walking around with fibroids that were like the equivalent of being 9 months pregnant. After that, after I had the surgery and I was discharged from the hospital, that's when recovery began. Recovery was not easy, and I want to talk about this without crying because that just felt like a really dark phase in my life, if I'm being honest. I couldn't laugh without it hurting. I couldn't, really make my own food. It was hard to stand up. It really hurt. Luckily, when they did my surgery, because my fibroids were so big, they told me that they might have had to like cut down the middle of my stomach because there was a big fibroid. Imagine this is my uterus down here. There was a big fibroid like sitting on the top of my uterus with a little spoke coming out of it. So like literally like this. They thought they were going to have to go in and cut me vertically to, open me up and then take the fibroid out that way. But I was working with such skilled doctors that they were able to cut me horizontally and then go in and take it out. So, luckily I had a horizontal cut, which, you can't really see too bad, and I healed really nicely. But yeah, it was just hard for, I think, about 2 months. I was bloated. That part of my stomach was extremely sore. Couldn't work out. It was kind of hard to walk. I know a lot of women ask on different forums and stuff about myomectomies, like how long you would need to heal. And I think at the very least, you need 6 months to get back into the swing of things, or not 6 months, 6 weeks to get back into the swing of things. And after those 6 weeks, you still have to take it very easy. The numbness in my stomach didn't go away for about a year, I will say. Now that I'm feeling my stomach now, I'm like, okay, the numbness is completely gone. But for a while, like, it was just numb down there. I couldn't feel anything. But yeah, recovery was very, very hard. I dealt with like a loss of appetite. Just felt very lonely because it's like you can't do much. All you can do is kind of just lay down and heal. And as someone who already works from home, it was just not fun. It wasn't fun. But I did recover nicely and now I'm good. And so, yes, once I recovered though, it was like night and day. My periods were extremely short, and they still are extremely short. I no longer had any back pain. I no longer felt like my period was about to start if I was standing up for long periods of time. I got my energy back. I got my freaking energy back. When I was dealing with my fibroids at my worst, I was living in LA, which is a car city where you can hop in your car and go anywhere. And I was freaking tired. I currently live in New York City where I don't have my car and I am reliant on my own 2 feet and the subway and Uber and whatever else to get to and from different places. And that requires a lot of energy. And if I would have still had my fibroids in my body, if I would have not gotten them removed, there was no way I would have been able to live in New York because I just would not have had the stamina for it at all. Now, let's talk about something extremely important, which is the burden of not knowing how to heal myself after surgery. I can't tell you how many times I've felt guilty or hopeless or just downright like sad when I would go and indulge in food that I know was the type of food that kind of contributed to my condition with my fibroids. In essence, food that throws off my hormones, and foods that are heavy in carbs and heavy in sugars. Like I said, it wasn't until recently that I've sat down with myself and I'm just like, okay, let's count our calories. Let's incorporate the foods that I need, not just the foods that I want. And let's shed some excess weight and let's truly get healthy. And if you are interested in following my health journey, you can do so on this channel as well. But there's a certain guilt there. And for the women who have healed their fibroids naturally, hats off to you, because that is not easy. It is a road that is less traveled, and it's less traveled for a reason. But what I want to do is open up this space for women like myself who have had myomectomies and don't want to go back to that operating table. Women who are on a journey where they feel like they might have fibroids and they don't want them to get any bigger, so they're eating to heal their bodies. And people who just want to keep their hormones in a healthy place, because as time goes on and this world gets more and more toxic and the food gets more and more toxic and the quality is less and less, it is like we are tasked with making sure that we keep our health in check, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Even though women are speaking more about their hormones and balancing their hormones in online spaces, it is still not a huge conversation. And I think that the reason that is because it was a conversation that was reserved for women who are older in age. I'm only 32, turning 33 tomorrow, and I've already dealt with a surgery as a result of hormone imbalances. And I feel like the ages of women who are going to have to deal with this, especially Black women, is going to get younger and younger and younger and younger. And so what I hope to do is create a space where we can have open conversations about our hormones, keeping them healthy, keeping them in check, keeping them balanced, because that is going to be the future of women's health. So if you want to follow along, I am going on a health journey. I am dropping some excess fat, balancing my hormones. This is all things health and wellness. If you have any questions about myomectomies, fibroids, any of that, leave it in the comments. I'll make a video about it. I hope this helps someone, and you guys will be seeing more of me soon. Like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.